I gotta be honest, I've been meaning to rewatch Cyberpunk Edgerunners for a while because I haven't seen it since it originally aired back in 2022. But since CD Projekt Red and Studio Trigger have finally announced Season 2, I was given the perfect opportunity to relive some really painful memories. But when I say that, I don't mean that in a bad way, because for every painful memory that I had to live through with Cyberpunk Edgerunners, I was left with an insatiable amount of awe throughout the show. Studio Trigger really outdid themselves when they brought Night City to life in this anime, and I truly believe that it's one of the best that I've seen in the last 10 years. Now, by no means is Cyberpunk Edgerunners the perfect show, but it's a show with an identity that just oozes throughout the screen, and it has just such great characters, it has such great music. It's overall such an amazing show, and I was really happy to have rewatched it this year. Now, for y'all who haven't played Cyberpunk 2077 or seen Cyberpunk Edgerunners, the show takes place in Night City, a fictional city that is absolutely filled to the brim with corporate greed and the run-of-the-mill vices that plague our everyday American and just world society. Crime is running rampant, the richer get richer, the poorer get poorer, and for our average Joes like our main protagonist at the start of the series, David Martinez, it's hard to climb up in the world of Night City. And at the beginning of the show, his mom is attempting to do everything possible to get David, just a step ahead of somebody. She works long hours, she attempts to do some side hustles to bring in some extra cash, and she's doing everything possible to try and motivate David to continue his education. And I think David genuinely tries at the beginning of the series to keep going on the straight and narrow, but then his life is turned upside down. David and his mom are involved in a car accident which tragically takes her life. But the worst part about it is that she had initially survived her injuries, she just wasn't able to get proper insurance to cover the following medical expenses. And so ultimately, with nowhere else to go, David turns to a life of crime. And this part right here is where I'm going to stop talking about the synopsis and encourage y'all that if you haven't watched Cyberpunk Edgerunners, please go do so. Please do. Because now I really want to get into what I enjoyed going forward in the series. And the first thing that I want to mention is David. I really do enjoy David as a main character for a number of reasons. His journey from being a kid who doesn't fit in pretty much anywhere you try to put him to finding his own sort of family in a messed up world is something we've seen plenty of times before, but he's also got some other things going on. He's that star that burned a little too bright a little too quickly. And upon rewatching Cyberpunk Edgerunners, I don't think I liked him as much as I did the first time, but I still think he's a great main character. And he's identifiable to me in a couple other ways too. I mean, when I moved back to the United States from Mexico, I think that I had some issues in terms of finding my own little clique, but eventually I did. And I made some of the best friends in my life from that little clique, and I will always be appreciative of them. And fortunately for me, not so fortunately for David, my friends didn't have to end up in a confrontation with Adam Smasher. And of course, I can't talk about David without mentioning Lucy, although I believe that she is the weaker of our two main protagonists, and I use that very loosely. I still think her character is great. I mean, she's the one who introduces David to Night City. She's the one who brings him into this whole different world, both, metaphorically when she takes him to the moon in that blade dance, and physically as she's introducing him into his new life. I mean, just think about it. Without Lucy, what does David accomplish after his mom passes away? Without her believing in him, does he really get to the point that he does at the end of the season? Without Lucy, does David ever find Maine's crew? Does he ever become a part of that family? I don't know. But what I do know is that Rebecca needs to be appreciated, and she isn't in her crew as much as she deserves to be, because she really keeps David together at the end of the season, and without Rebecca, shoot. But yeah, I mean, aside from having some great characters, Cyberpunk Edgerunners also just has some great music, some great backgrounds. And Studio Trigger really did bring their A game when they were animating this. Not only did they bring Night City to life, but they stamped their trademark Trigger animation all over it. And it almost feels like a culmination of all of their works in a way, or at least what they've learned throughout stuff like Kill la Kill, Gurren Lagann, which I know isn't, all Trigger, but it's most of Trigger. And they just excel. They excel bringing this hyper-violent, hyper-dystopian environment of Night City into life. And after rewatching Season 1, I am really excited for Season 2, because y'all have to remember, that show is 3 years old now. And although the story isn't necessarily the most revolutionary thing ever, it is a very good story nonetheless. And I think we are all aware that episode 6 in particular is the absolute pinnacle of what Studio Trigger can do for not only anime in general, but Cyberpunk as a property. I mean, just the opening sequence of Main running towards the literal end of the road it's so good. But my one biggest gripe, I think, even after rewatching Edgerunners, is the villains. Faraday and those forgettable Arasaka corpos are very just that forgettable. And I mean, their motivations are pretty simple. They're just a bunch of corporate dogs who are just stepping on the little guys to get a foot above everybody else. But it could just have been done better. And maybe we will get a better villain in season 2. Who knows? I mean, even when you're playing the game, the biggest villain, at least at launch for Cyberpunk, was, well, the game and getting it to work properly. But we're past that now. The final episode in particular made me realize how little I cared about Faraday, because when he flew out of that window from Arasaka, or the port, whatever you want to call it, and landed face first from 30 stories above, I thought that was hilarious. And I thought that Adam Smasher in his maybe 10 minutes of screen time was so much more interesting. But I also knew who the guy was, so that also probably gave me a better connection to him than certain people who hadn't played the video game yet. Adam Smasher just has a presence that no other antagonist does in the series. And I will never forgive him for what he did to Rebecca. That was just plain disrespectful. But what I did like is that he was, in a way, kind of a foil to David in the end, because if you think about it, if David had gone back to Arasaka, they would have put him in that cyber skeleton from day one. So who's to say that they wouldn't have manipulated him or chromed him out like they did Adam Smasher? Maybe they would have just made him Adam Smasher Jr. And I think that's also what I like about this universe in particular with Cyberpunk, is just there's so many routes that you can take that you're not quite sure how they might have turned out, but it makes you think. You're curious to think about these things when you're thinking about the world of Cyberpunk. So, overall, really excited for Season 2. I really enjoyed my time rewatching this series. And if you've listened to me yap this long into the video, thank you, first and foremost. And two, if you haven't watched the show, what are you doing? Go do it, please. If you don't have a Netflix account, a physical release is coming out, and I'm sure it is on some other websites somewhere. But with all that said, what did you guys think? Did you watch Cyberpunk Edgerunners? I hope so, if you've made it this far. If so, what was your favorite moment, or who was your favorite character? Please feel free to let me know down in the comments. And if you enjoyed to listen to me yap, please drop me a like, share the video, or subscribe. This has been Soggy Taco, and I will see you guys in the very near future for another video. Hasta luego.